So before we kick off, I have a couple of housekeeping rules. I'm Sophie Kenneally from Paris 21, and I'll be moderating throughout the day. First of all, you may have seen that this is going to be recorded. So if you are uncomfortable with that, please feel free to leave, though we hope you won't. We also have translation available in both French and Spanish. So if you are looking for the translation, it's at the bottom of the screen under More and the three dots, and you can select which language you would like to listen in. We will have time for Q&A after the panelists. So if you do have questions, do note them down. We have a dedicated Q&A box under the icon, again, at the bottom of your screen. Well, I think that's all we need for housekeeping. So I'm delighted to kick us off and hand over to Johannes Jütting, Executive Director at Paris 21, for some opening remarks. Johannes, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you very much for joining this webinar. We are very excited that you have taken some time out to join us today for this webinar, which is entitled Enhancing the Availability and Quality Data for Policymaking Using AI. Quite a mouthful. As Sophie said, I'm the director of Paris 21, and together with my colleague Karolin Erdmann from the German Society for International Cooperation, in short, GIZ, we would warmly welcome you to the seminar and to the launch of the paper, the policy paper that we just published. Let me just say, Paris 21 is not really very known for publishing a lot of papers. We publish once a year our standard publication, monitoring support, financial support to data and statistics, the so-called press report, which we actually launch in 2 weeks' time. But from time to time, on very important topics, we launch specific policy briefs. And I have to say, I'm specifically delighted that we have this brief out here together with the colleagues and contributions from many in the field on the role of data and AI to make data available for evidence-based policymaking. So this is, I really invite you all to download the policy brief and to read it. There's a lot of really, really good material in it. And I will not say too much what is in it because we will discuss this. Mercedes and colleagues will present. But what I wanted to say at the outset is just to step back for a second. Why does an organization like Paris 21 at all is working on AI, artificial intelligence? We are an organization that supports statistical capacity in low-income countries, basically. We have been created 25 years ago, supporting the MDGs, now the Sustainable Development Goals now, and we work very closely with national statistical offices. So you may ask, what the heck? I mean, artificial intelligence, this should be for the technology guys, for the digitalization guys. Why does Paris 21 work on those topics? Well, to some extent, life and time has changed. You will all agree with me that we are struggling to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. We still have 5 years to go. And one critical element to achieve the SDGs and Agenda 2030 is quality data. It's quality data for making good decisions. And as you all know, this is the current time, as of today, as we speak, is challenging from many different angles. It's challenging from the angle of financial support for in-country support for data, but it's also challenging from a perspective of official development assistance order for funding for development data. So that's a challenge on the budgetary side, but we also have in some countries, actually an increasing number of countries, a legitimacy crisis for evidence-based policymaking and for data. Legitimacy means that citizens sometimes can't relate to the data that is produced. There's a divergence between facts and feelings. People can't relate. So the question to some extent is, can artificial intelligence help to address some of those challenges? Artificial intelligence used from the data production side to the data use side. So is there any possibility that artificial intelligence can help? What are the opportunities, but also what are the risks? We are all very aware that there are tremendous risks using AI in a non-reflective way. So how can we minimize those risks and try to identify the opportunities that there are? So I just wanted to, with these few words, to set the scene. I do believe that the policy brief has a lot of interesting material, specifically on case study countries. There are some really interesting use cases that I invite you to look at, from which we can distill determinants of, say, successful use of AI for quality data production and use. So, and you will hear quite a bit about them in a second. So I think I leave it at this stage. I'm also very excited myself to listen to all the presentations. We have a wonderful panel, and but first, let me hand over to Karolin. And thank you again, Karolin, for all the support GIZ through BMZ has provided to us. It was a wonderful partnership, and we are very happy to be with you here to launch this paper. Over to you, Karolin.
Well, thank you so much, Johannes. You actually said everything already, everything important, I feel like. So hello also to everyone else joining in this call today for this webinar. As Johannes already mentioned, this webinar is actually built on a cooperation between Paris 21 and the Data to Policy project, which is financed by the Data Lab of the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. And it is implemented by the GIZ, the German Development Agency, where I actually work. So I want to say, first of all, thank you so much to Paris 21 for their incredible work in the last 1.5 years, and also for carrying out this webinar. Thanks so much to the entire and very dedicated team at Paris 21. Well, the aim today of this webinar is actually to reflect on what has worked and what has not worked in like strengthening data ecosystems through innovation. And today's webinar is all about using AI for policymaking. And I think to most of us, it is pretty clear that AI is like more than just a buzzword. It is increasingly shaping how data are produced and used. And this webinar is now an opportunity for all of us to learn from like national experiences that show both the potential as well as the limits of AI in official statistics. Well, the paper that was developed by Paris 21 now invites all of us to consider not just the technology itself, but also the institutional as well as the ethical connections that make us use AI in a responsible and sustainable manner. And by sharing these lessons across countries now, we hope that it helps others to navigate the similar transitions and make better use of data for evidence-informed policymaking. Well, I think all there's left for me to say is enjoy this webinar, learn from it, and never stop like exchanging knowledge with all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karolin, and thank you, Johannes. I think you've set the scene very well, so we're all the more eager now to hear what Mercedes has to share with us, a little bit of a teaser for the discussion paper. I am going to share my screen, which is perhaps the most difficult part that I haven't worked out how AI can help us. But hopefully you should now be able to see my screen. Looks good. So just quickly before I hand over to Mercedes, Paris 21's very own policy analyst who's been leading this work on AI, to explain a little bit about what you can expect in the brief. Maybe we'll start with a little bit about what you can expect from the day. So after Mercedes's presentation, we have a really fantastic panel lined up to talk us through some of those great country experiences that Johannes mentioned. And then we have a Q&A session where we welcome your questions for all of our panelists, before we look at our closing remarks and key takeaways. So without further ado, Mercedes, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sophie. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Those were great introductions, both Johannes and Karolin. So I very much appreciate you setting the scene very well, both in terms of the need and the context of why this brief is particularly timely, but also where Paris 21 fits into it. And without further ado, we're very excited to officially be launching here today Paris 21's new policy brief on how AI can transform the way data supports policymaking, otherwise known as enhancing the availability of quality data for policymaking using AI. A little bit of a mouthful, but tried to capture it as best as possible. This brief that we're going to talk about today, and that I'll spend about 10 minutes presenting here, builds on our work with several different national statistical offices, or NSOs, as well as other partners worldwide to really explore the practical, responsible ways of using AI for better evidence-driven policymaking. Throughout this presentation, I'll make sure to highlight why this topic matters, what the paper actually covers and what you can expect to find in it, and also what this means for a number of different stakeholders from governments and policymakers, NSOs, the research and tech community, international partners, etc. Next slide, please. So just before diving into what you can expect actually in terms of the content of the paper, I wanted to set the scene a little bit and provide some context. The demand for timely disaggregated data is rising. I don't think that's a surprise for anyone here on this call. But it's something that we're seeing not only in response to rising pressures and global crises, but it's really in terms of disaggregated data for achieving the SDGs, for national development plans, to address inequality, and also to make sure that digital divides and other types of divides do not widen. But many national statistical systems face constraints. They're facing tight budgets, fragmented systems, and also limited capacity. So this is where AI can come into it. AI offers new possibilities from faster data processing, smarter analysis, and also personalized communication of insights, among many other opportunities. But these gains aren't automatic. While they can be very beneficial and they have tremendous potential, without the right frameworks, AI can also deepen the bias and data divides that I mentioned and amplify existing risks. So what this brief really tries to get at is a central question about how we can use AI responsibly to strengthen and not weaken official statistical systems. Next slide. So in this brief, we've divided it into 4 sections. The first one looks at the potential of AI and what it really can do to improve data production and use. Then we move into a bit of a more targeted examination of making the leap from pilots to process. And that's what we'll discuss in the panel discussion after this presentation as well. And what I'm very much looking forward to hearing from all of our speakers and also questions. The third chapter of the policy brief looks a little bit more zoomed out into the enabling environment, to governance, regulations, and different frameworks, and also looks at the risks that are very much present and important to address. And then finally, the last section of the paper is a number of recommendations for different stakeholder groups. Next slide. So the first part of this paper, let's really start to dig into it a little bit more. We've got this fantastic visualization of the data value chain and where AI can add value across it. In short, AI can enhance every stage of the data process, starting in the design process with predictive models to help identify different gaps and optimize survey samples, for example. In the collection stage, we can use things like image recognition or mobile tools to help map enumeration areas or also to detect informal settlements. In the processing phase of things, machine learning has already proven to be very, very useful and interesting for data quality control in terms of spotting anomalies in real time. For analysis, for example, we've also seen fantastic use cases of using text and satellite data that can be integrated fast and seamlessly to achieve richer insights faster and with less resources. And then at the end of this data value chain, also when we think about communication, dissemination, and the use of actual data, making it more accessible, easier to understand for policymakers and for other non-technical data users. This can look like different chatbots and dashboards to make this data more accessible and usable, and at the end of the day, actually more used. Next slide. The second part of the paper is where we dive into this pilot to embedded process, or what we might also call the pilot paradox. Across countries, we're seeing many exciting uses of AI and a lot of different pilot projects, which are great because any use case or any implementation, any new technology, we want to make sure is tested before really scaling it up. But the importance is really making sure that projects are being scaled up. And there often tends to be a barrier for that institutionalization and bringing it from pilot to embedded process. Oftentimes, these projects succeed technically, but can often fade institutionally. So when we think about embedding AI, there are three things that we want to consider. The first one being leadership and vision. So how to integrate AI into national strategies, such as the national strategies for the development of statistics or the NSDS, and also data modernization plans. It's important to have structures and processes also in place. So things like creating innovation labs, establishing these innovation corridors to be able to link research and production or experiments also to production. And then making sure that capacity and culture is also very strong is very important to embedding AI as well. So this looks like investing in people, training staff, encouraging collaboration and experimentation, having that culture of testing, but also normalizing failure. It's important that we know that not everything is going to be successful, and that's okay. So having that rapport and that culture is also very important. Underpinning all of this, of course, is partnerships with groups in academia, civil society, the private sector, so that there's a lot of knowledge sharing and sustainability that can be ensured across projects. But at the end of the day, embedding AI into process is not just about the technology itself. It's really about transforming institutions and making sure that collaboration is at the core. Next slide. But of course, with all of this talk about embedding AI, we can't forget about the risks conversation that comes up and also risk management. So while AI can absolutely enhance efficiency, there's also a significant risk about amplifying bias or eroding trust if it's poorly governed. There are the fundamental principles of official statistics, which are absolutely a very highly regarded tool that need to be kept in mind as NSOs and statistical systems are adopting AI, but it's really about how countries can uphold these fundamental principles. There's 4 pillars that we can think of for adaptive local governance, or I'll say adaptive governance because definitely the localization is key for one in particular, but we need to see governance and accountability, so having clear mandates and ethical oversight. Transparency and auditability are also very important, so that's things like the transparency, the explainability of algorithms and data sources, trying to eliminate that black box problem. Data protection and fairness is also very important, so things like privacy, safeguards, and also mitigating biases. And then that legal adaptation is very important, and that's where the local context comes even more into play because statistical laws need to be adapted and updated to accommodate for AI innovations as it continues to evolve quite rapidly. Overall, global principles that are being developed, there's many that exist, but these global principles need to be adapted locally to national contexts, capacities, and also to local norms. In essence, responsible AI is really about trust. And so trustworthy AI can strengthen both data quality and institutional legitimacy, but the key word here is trustworthy. Next slide. And the final section of our paper is really on these recommendations. So I've put a big table here. No worries if you can't read it all in the time that I'm speaking through it, because it is, again, all included in the policy brief, which you can find on our website. But the paper tailors several recommendations to several different stakeholder groups. For governments and NSOs, this looks like integrating AI into different data strategies and ensuring transparency. For policymakers and data users, it's important to engage early on and also to promote feedback mechanisms for these tools. For the tech and research community, the call is really to make open and inclusive AI tools and to focus on having digital public goods be very inclusive as well. For civil society and academia, where they can come in is really in terms of monitoring the ethical risks and promoting inclusion to hold institutions accountable. Regional networks also play a big role here as well, as they can foster peer learning and also share outcomes. And then finally, our international and development partners, the recommendation here is to support capacity development and capacity building initiatives, support the development of open source tools, and also long-term investments that are very system-based rather than one-off projects. Next slide. So we have a window of opportunity. It is quite timely right now, but it's important that we don't miss this window of opportunity. We can say that there's a few forces converging together right now that make it particularly important and appropriate to really think about using AI for data and for policymaking, because there's that rising data demand that I mentioned earlier for things like SDG monitoring and crisis response, yet many NSOs remain under-resourced. At the same time, there are rapid AI advances. Models and tools are more accessible than ever in terms of affordability and automation, so they are accessible for many countries. There's also a lot of international attention at this moment on AI governance and ethics, so it's important to think about how that can be leveraged to strengthen national data systems, not only national systems separate from statistics and data. So it's a rare moment here to align innovation and inclusion. For policymakers, this responsible AI can improve both efficiency and equity in decision-making. And for partners, it's a cost-effective way to modernize data ecosystems while also strengthening governance. Next slide. And so just before ending here, just to leave you all with hopefully a little bit of a chuckle before we get into the panel. While AI can offer and does offer unprecedented potential to modernize and make things faster, potentially better, it's important that we see it as a means to the end. It's not the end itself. And so ensuring that we have a strong foundation when it comes to governance, when it comes to ethics, and when it comes to the resources, capacity, and the humans that are working on these systems is incredibly important. Embedding it means really rethinking people, processes, as well as policies. So once again, this brief offers a starting point. Responsible AI can, of course, well, not of course, hopefully, make official statistics more relevant, inclusive, and impactful. But it's important that there's collaboration and that we all work together on this. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for listening to my little soapbox here. I hope to hear from many people on what you think of this policy brief. And I'm even more looking forward to hearing some reflections and interventions from our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Mercedes, for this fantastic teaser of the report. If you are eager to get your hands on the report, you can also find the links in English, French, and Spanish in the chat. I think that was a very holistic and in many ways humbling view of AI for official statistics, Mercedes. So understanding those technical opportunities, but also that wider enabling environment that really needs to be in place in order for these opportunities to be exploited in a sustainable way. As somebody who's fairly new to AI and official statistics, it's comforting perhaps to see that some of those core values or core considerations that we think about in official statistics seem to also ring true when we bring in AI. So things like trust, governance, collaboration, localization, and a system-wide approach are not new to us. So really looking forward to seeing more about that in the brief. In today's panel, we have a fantastic set of panelists. We're going to focus today on that part 2 that Mercedes mentioned of the brief, that really looks at how we move from exciting pilots and use cases into embedding these into processes and making these sort of lasting systems at country and also regional level. So joining us today, we have Therese Uwimana from the National Institute of Statistics, Rwanda. We have Mr. Rohit Bhardwaj from the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation of the Government of India. Dr. Nashwal Wajdi from Statistics Indonesia, and Professor Samuel Kubina Anim from the UN Economic Commission for Africa. So I'm going to start, Therese, with you. I can't see you, but I know we connected briefly before, so I'm going to assume you're with us. And the first question we have for you, you will have 5 minutes to answer. And we would love to hear about some of the interesting ways that NISR, so the National Institute of Statistics in Rwanda, is piloting AI. So Therese, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I will try to manage the time given. First of all, I wanted to thank Mercedes. The paper is well thought and is really informative, and Paris 21 in general. So I wanted to quickly go to the use cases we've piloted in AI. First of all, I want to acknowledge the will and the political will from the top of the government of Rwanda. We have enablers that are helping us doing so, piloting at least AI. So first of all, among the enablers, I wanted to mention we have frameworks in place. For instance, we have data protection and privacy law. We have also data sharing policy, and also we have an AI policy just to paint that bigger picture where the government is going. And those, to mention just a few, have helped us starting to explore and pilot some of AI tools. And also at the statistics office, I wish to acknowledge that we were lucky to have a department dedicated for data science and big data. At least we have that time to explore. So when I dive into mainly the use cases, I will just mention a few. One, we have explored the automation of occupational text classification, ISCO. So that one we use natural language processing, but it's still at a very early stage. We haven't even piloted it. We are still exploring. And since like it's been almost 3 years, we are working on computer vision, exploring how high resolution satellite images can help our seasonal agriculture survey. We want to know what happens during the season before the season ends. So these are new insights we want to create using AI tool. We've also pirated web scraping as also to bring in new other insights. Web scraping, we wanted to understand the accommodation, which is normally hard to have through surveys, and also job vacancies. We want to know, because normally in our labor force survey, we do we understand the employment side, but we wanted also to understand the job supply side. And last but most mature pilot is the Gender Data Lab, which we are piloting in partnership with Paris 21 and Gender Monitoring Office in Rwanda. So that the platform is here to, the main focus of the platform, we want to bring we want to bring all gender indicators into one interactive platform and enable policymakers to find easily and in a user-friendly manner all gender-related data from all stakeholders. So we are doing so through a chatbot. We are piloting a chatbot to help answer user questions, but we are also automating the report production. As in office, we are not largely staffed, so some experts are really overwhelmed with work. So we are automating some of their routine processes so that to avail reports on time. And we are also within the Gender Data Lab, we are also availing interactive dashboards so that different people, different level of analytical people, or even not maybe technical people may understand gender data. I'm not sure about the time. If I cannot, I still have some minutes. I wanted to cover maybe the last component before I give back the floor. In the paper, Mercedes was emphasizing on the scaling. We've always been piloting. So we feel like we are on a stage where we want to scale. We want to bring some solutions into production, but I wanted to tackle on what we need. What is those needs that should be put in place for a statistics office to be able to scale some of the projects. First of all, we need frameworks, enabling legal frameworks. And also there's a point I called safe phased launch. Maybe in the paper, Mercedes used another terminology. It's because we need to feel comfortable when releasing these AI solutions. Are they safe for use? I think Mercedes used a different terminology, which I'm not getting very fast, but I will find it. And also, there is a need to a dedicated infrastructure. When I say infrastructure, it includes skilled personnel. We need to level up staff skills, but also scalable tools. When it comes to AI, compute power is really huge for a single institution. So we need to put in place maybe a common platform for a government, or at least government institutions, but also sustained financing. In the paper, there's a mention on AI. There are AI that are affordable, but when we are to scale these projects, we need really sustained financing, and also awareness, maybe change management. How are we, we need to acknowledge different cultures, different contexts. So we need to make sure that there's that awareness at the public level to understand how are we going to use these solutions, what are they able to provide, and what they cannot do. How much can you trust these tools? And so that is really critical. And also, last but not very important, is the very important point again is partnership at global level, but also at regional level, to ensure that we are customizing these AI tools in local or regional context. I think those are maybe in summary. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much. Therese, I'm sorry, I hope that's better. I have been taking very careful notes, so if you see your notes in future Paris 21 projects, you'll know why. But I think that really speaks as well to Mercedes' points about making AI sustainable is really more than just a technological solution. Really commendable work from NISR there in acknowledging those wider factors, that need for awareness, the enabling environment, the self-paced launch, which I think is a really great way to put it. So for the interest of time, I'm going to move over to our second speaker, and you have again around 5 minutes. So Mr. Rohit Bhardwaj, how has the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation in India been using AI, and where is it being used systematically? Over to you.
Yes. Okay. Difficult question to answer, Sophie, I must say. Thank you very much for giving me the floor with your difficult question. Because as we all know, AI in official statistics especially is just started. We are all trying to find out use cases. We are all trying to, for example, Paris 21, they have just come out with a website where there are 70 odd use cases are there. And we are all, and few of them are from MOSPI, of course. So I was just wondering when you were asking this question, how do I approach this question? But just let me just think over it. But let me tell you something. So the approach to systematic use of AI is something which we all need to work in detail. There is no right answer to it at this point in time. This is my understanding, because everyone is trying to. And you recall that famous incident when BARD was launched and it gave a wrong reply and the alphabet share went down by say 100 billion. So we all know that now the chatbot name itself had to be removed. So first we need to find out that now it's all Gemini. There's no BARD, I guess now, or it's at least I don't hear it. So what I'm trying to say that it will take some time before we get this trust in AI. Having said that, we approach this in a manner which is both pragmatic as well as embedded in the use cases. So we started with identifying the use cases. So all of us find out. Work together, and there are 11 use cases at present with us, which we identified. The second step was which of these use cases are going to be the most effective. So we decided and we thought to the best of our ability that the use cases which is public facing, which is basically why we are here, why we produce data. We produce data to disseminate. So those use cases we will take first, which is public facing. And then we will talk about our internal processes and then improve it. So what is the biggest barrier in it? If you ask me what is the biggest barrier at this point in time, is lack of data. we are in a data, and when I'm saying this with full responsibility, that we are working in NSOs, but still, and I can give you examples where we really lack data. I'll give you example. We all talk about text to classification. I mean, text to code classification, and it's established use cases everywhere. But many places there are not actual data available, because what we do, we hear the respondents text reply and we put it in a code. So the text part of it is not captured in many places. Many places it could be capturing, we could be capturing also, but in many places we don't capture. So data we have is only code. So the lack of data is something which is really stopping us from really systematically putting a trusted AI solution in the workflow of, or embedding in the workflow of a NSO. I'll say in any NSO, and must be including in that. But what we have done now, that we have started working on it. We started with pilots and POCs first, and through collaboration, as my colleague from Rwanda was saying, through collaboration, we did hackathons, we collaborated with startups, we collaborated with academic institutions, and when we got confidence out of these 11 which are possible to implement, so we worked out on two. One is, and that too, and then our criteria was it should be the most effective for the public, general public, citizen at large, because actually your theme is also data quality data and statistics for everyone. So we did that, and we came out with two of the solutions. One is our chatbot, which is in production now. So this is in production. And second is another bot which help people go to the right pages. If they go to our we have a national data portal, so people go there, but people don't know they know inflation, but they don't know that for the inflation which page to go. So one way is a search engine, but of course that also needs some sort of knowledge of the jargon. We want people to be free from it. So these are the two use cases which is available. These two use cases are systematically embedded in the workflow. And these two use cases can be accessed through our website, which is mosby.gov.in, or through our Data Innovation Lab portal, which I can share in the the chat here. So these are the two use cases we have systematically put in. But I'll say this is a long way to go, and lack of data is perhaps we should all think about how to overcome that barrier. Thank you. I guess I was within my time.
I think that's pretty perfect timing. Thank you very much. And please do post those links. I think that would be really fantastic to see what you've been piloting. I think the one thing that stands out to me is your prioritization of those public-facing pieces. So again, huge kudos for prioritizing that. And I think an important message to us all. Alongside not forgetting the basics, data production and data quality, which are really at the heart of official statistics wherever you look. So our next speaker is now Dr. Nasrul Wajdi from Statistics Indonesia. And we'd like to know about how Statistics Indonesia are using AI for official statistics work. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Sophie, and also thank you very much, Paris 21, for organizing this webinar. It's really a great webinar. And then let me start answering your questions by citing one of the Paris 21 discussion paper, 17/2024. So it said that statistical institutions and policymakers need AI for more efficient, accurate, and insightful results. So at the end, what we are doing now is that to have more efficient, yet we have accurate and quality data. So therefore, in Indonesia, we start by having this international standard. We see which part of our business process that we could use AI for that. So we also we learned from GAMSO that it's a literature by Modern Stat, that which areas in GAMSO that could we use AI inside. So we start from there in Statistics Indonesia. And then what do we start? We start small. We start really small, that we can assure that when we start using this AI, it won't affect any of our quality data. For instance, in Indonesia, we start using AI chatbot. for statistical information services. There's no harm for the quality data in there, but yet we have a literacy to the public that we increase our service to the public. Secondly, we increase the level by using automation of IC code, for instance. So by using this automation for the IC code, we embed the IC code inside our KP model. We increase the quality of the coding for the classification. So our enumerator is not necessarily to use the manual code, but they just need to enter some keywords, which is also make for them easier and at the same time increase data quality. And then we increase the level into what we call integrated processing and analysis system, which is we also in some process we use AI in there. So what I'm going to say is that start small, which when we are not sure that you are using AI that will impact the quality of your data, then you can increase or you can increase your gain. So that one. And then what we need to do more for the future, we need to also think about our infrastructure. AI is not an maybe for some countries it is easy because we have very fancy infrastructure. But for some other countries, you need very high GPUs. You need very fancy, you need very expensive investment in building AI. So you need to really consider what do you really to build first. Do you really want to invest in AI while on the other hand, you still have problem with your collecting data, for instance. So you really need to think what you need to build first, what you need to focus first, and then you start from there to see which level you aim to. But at the end, we aim to have more efficient, more accurate, and more quality data. So that's all from me, Sophie. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So I'm hearing start small, which sounds also a lot more manageable when you're starting off with AI. And also think about that infrastructure and that prioritization. So fantastic, fantastic messages, Dr. Wajdi. And so I'll pass over now to our final speaker to hear from a regional perspective. So Professor Anim, if you could tell us some of the exciting novel use cases you've seen in your work across the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie, and I believe I can be heard. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's definitely a great delight to be part of this conversation, especially at a time that PARI 21 has demonstrated continuity in terms of how AI is shaping our community. Sophie, I would want to do something slightly different in the sense that all earlier speakers have spoken about how AI is helping us shape our mode of professional practice, i.e. from data production through policy to impact. And what I want to talk about slightly different is one of the issues that Mercedes mentioned, but in a more detailed perspective. Mercedes did mention that one of the things that we get from the publication has to do with a reflection on the fundamental principles of official statistics. So I think over the last 1 year, what PARI 21 has done is to try and encourage a better use of AI for the production of statistics right down to impact. But what we shouldn't miss out is the other potential of AI in the sense that if you take each of the fundamental principles, there are some aspects of it that relates to the generic statistics business process mapping, which all other speakers have spoken about. But there are other dimensions of the fundamental principles of official statistics that AI holds a lot of potential in helping change the narrative around that. One of which is preventing the misuse of statistics. And I relate that to what Johannes indicated from the perspective of relatability of the statistics, that is what National Statistical Service are putting out and what the public feel about it. AI holds a lot of potential depending on, and again, Therese, thank you for highlighting the issue of partnership. At ECA, our mandate for 2026 talks about coordinated partnership in a country ownership context. And what this means is that, can we have partnerships with tech companies in a way that they don't see us as receivers of data, or also we providing them data, but work hand in hand with them in what I call policy teasers around what ought to be done and relating to what has been produced. This would revolve around the issue of the relatability that I talked about, and to a large extent help us reflect on how we can prevent the misuse of statistics. Let me give you a classical example. We all have heard of time use data, a session that I'm in now, and a number of us are using smartphones, and it tells us how many hours we've worked a day, how many hours we've slept a day. These are not official statistics, but these are statistics that the tech companies are producing. What kind of partnership can the statistical world get with these tech companies? So for instance, if I work a day or if I sleep half a day, it tells me that within my geographical area, I'm the person with the lowest sleep a day. And then relate that to what is happening nationally and relate that to what is happening regionally. So gradually we get the public's attention on how to use statistics to relate to other statistics. That gives us a sense of validation, that gives us a sense of verification. Another perspective that we can use, we can look at AI, not strictly from the generic studies business process mapping, are issues around coordination, are issues around international partnership, which is not germane to the generic statistics business process mapping. But for instance, if we are all feeding a central repository with all the legislations that we have across the globe, then at any point in time, if we are obliging with the fundamental principles of official statistics, there will be a window through which AI gives us a sense of how a national statistical system has a legislation that it's either off what is happening on the continent or it obliges with what is happening globally. So essentially what I'm trying to put across is it's super. Part 21 has done well sensitizing the community on how we use AI for production, for analysis, for dissemination, and for uptake. But really, that is not the end of AI. AI can pick each of the fundamental principles, as I've demonstrated, with 2 or 3 of them to ensure that we're going beyond that. Sophie, I'm going to end by acknowledging the need to appreciate the designation of statistics at different levels. And we've talked about this several times. We have clearly moved away from a strict focus on official statistics. Now statistics could be looked at from the perspective of it being experimental, it being an official statistics, it being a national statistics, and it being an unexperimented statistics. Once we understand these different designations and see how AI fits into each of them, one of which is the policy teasers that I talked about, then it gives us a better understanding of how to engage with AI. Clearly, we've moved beyond the laggards of AI, the champions of AI. We are now embracing AI for its full resourcefulness. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sam. And it sounds like we have a lot of work to do, but also that we've come a long way. So thank you for pointing those out. We then have a second round of questions for all of our panelists. This is a very short round, so please, we're slightly over time. If you can stick to maximum 2 minutes. And I'll start by going back to Therese at NISR. Could you tell us, how do you balance experimenting with AI against other urgent statistical demands? Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Actually, indeed, it's hard considering the workload of the Office of Statistics, but how we are managing it in Rwanda, we are making sure we onboard professional interns. So first of all, we are training them, but they are also innovating. And again, we recommend them back through national statistical systems. So they are innovating, but we are also training them to be absorbed across different institutions. Second, we also have a partnership with different local universities, and we host different competitions, including hackathon, and we also attract different talents through those channels. In brief, those are the main other alternatives we are using to make sure that we balance office work and innovation. Back to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Therese. And I'm going to move straight on to Mr. Bardwaj. How can AI be linked to existing statistical modernization strategies rather than treated as a standalone experiment? You have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are doing this exactly in MOSPI right now. So my take would be following. While designing your transformation, you embed AI in the transformation process itself. Don't consider it something from outside. As we design data flow, as we design any other process, design where AI can be used. So that is one point, and that is the very important point. And then move forward on it. So once you have designed it, then do the pilots, as I am saying, again, repeating myself. So we did pilots and find out which are feasible. And the feasible ones were taken to the production. Now, I would like to discuss more about pilots and production. So pilots at times gives us a false sense of belief that everything can be, scaled up, because they need a lesser infrastructure, they need smaller data set, they work in control environment. So their success does not directly guarantee a success of a scaled product. So at times what happens that we need to be very, very sure that how can we scale it successfully. So for that, we need to take help of, and I'm very sure on this, we need to take help of the specialist, which is always not the statisticians. They could be computer scientists, they could be machine learning experts, there are so many, roles nowadays, AI engineer, ML ops, and there are so many. So we have approached two ways. One is that we went through the open market, did a RFP, brought a technical partner with us and worked with them. And as a result, we have this chatbot on our website. The second approach is to work with the academic institutions. The experts are there. We funded them a little bit. And believe me, their work and the robustness of it is something we must see and follow. So when you buy something, you may get a ready-made product. But when you work with academic institution, and then what comes out of it is something at a very different scale. So these are the two processes we adopted. Both are successful. We could have two results from both of them, but I would still prefer that there is a solid academic NSO partnership, which will help people, really work a very robust and very, very sustainable product. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm hearing a lot about partnerships, which is great to hear today. So, Dr. Wajdi, I'm going to pass straight on to you with the question of how do you communicate AI-driven methods to policymakers and the public in a way that builds trust? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. It's a really hard question because now AI is becoming a global trend, which is some people or some part of our community really don't have trust in AI. But what we do in Indonesia is that we have this kind of strong regulation. We have a national strategy for development of AI, which is built from 2020 to 2045. In this national strategy, we have the strong ethics and also increasing talents, also infrastructure and innovations, in particular in 5 public sector: health, bureaucracy, educations, smart city. So we start to build communication with public where they see that AI have a direct benefit to them. And that's how we communicate that AI is not only about having something virtual, but you could feel that AI give you more benefit, direct benefit. It's not only rocket science, but people can feel the benefit. That's how we communicate to the public, by having this strong national strategy and through the strengthening ethics, talents, infrastructure, and innovation, in particular in several sectors: health, bureaucracy, educations, and also smart city. Thank you, Sophie.
Fantastic. I'm seeing that also resonating with Mr. Bhardwaj's comments on that public-facing side of AI. So great to see some common themes. I'm going to move on to my final questions. As you're listening to Mr. Anim's, or Professor Anim's, final question, if you do have any questions for the panelists, feel free to add them to the Q&A box. But first, our final question, Professor Anim. What areas of official statistics are most ready for systematic AI adoption today? Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. That's a very interesting question in terms of which area is most ready. I would be very careful in saying it's either the production side, it's either the analytical side, or dissemination side, or policy uptake side. And the reason why I say that is I define most readiness from the perspective of the complications associated with each of them, or the low-hanging fruits associated with each of them. The challenge here is our definition of the scope of AI. If you ask me, the statistics profession has been guided strictly with a scientific procedure based on the fundamental principles that I talked about. But a light way of looking at the statistical procedure are issues around dissemination and potential mismatch between statistical outputs and policy uptake. I say these are less restrictive in the sense that they do not really have to be guided by the strict scientific rigor that traditional statistics is aware of. So my approach to the conversation around AI and statistics is, why don't we pick up on the low-hanging fruits? i.e., how do we make sure that AI facilitates the dissemination? AI helps us to better understand the connection between statistical output and policy uptake. How do we use AI to harness ideas? And then we can get into the more technical, capacity-driven areas in terms of the analytics and the data production and things around that. So I approach it from the perspective of the low-hanging fruits around the dissemination and the uptake side, and the harnessing, developing of public trust using AI tools. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, and thank you so much for being so concise with such rich insights. So I think key message is very clear to go for the low-hanging fruits. So I'm going to open up now for a Q&A. We welcome all of your questions for the panelists. We have a couple which I will kick us off with. I'm actually going to start with a question which I believe, Mercedes, may be directed towards you, but I welcome all panelists to listen carefully, because I think you may all have a few words to say on this. So the paper highlights AI's potential to improve data disaggregation and representation. Do you have any recommendations on how AI can be applied responsibly to enhance the visibility of marginalized or underrepresented populations, while actively mitigating rather than reinforcing existing data biases? It's a bit of a mouthful, so I'll post it for the panelists in the chat. But Mercedes, perhaps we can start with you.
Sure, yes. I think it's a really interesting question, and something that I would say the policy brief doesn't make that extra step to yet, because it's something that I think could really merit its own policy brief or own discussion paper in terms of representativeness and inclusion of marginalized or underrepresented communities especially. But what immediately came to mind, just as Sophie are reading that out, is the training data set, and how oftentimes models that are created and developed are being created and developed by a small subset of people in a small subset of countries, and often aren't fully representative, because the training data, or the data that these models are being trained on, are also from a much smaller pool. So when we think about the training data that need to be used, or that can be used, is trying to take a step back even before we think about AI, but thinking about the data being representative and inclusive, and making sure that those data are good quality and free of as much bias as possible. All data has some bias, but it's really about how much is there, and making sure that's what's being the tool that's informing new AI tools. Similarly, the importance of making sure that humans are still involved. It's the human in the loop framework or idea of things. Because while AI and different machines are incredibly valuable, and that's what we're talking about here today, humans still are very core to these systems. And so it's important that there is human oversight and regular checks and feedback that is still happening. And then finally, the importance of actually engaging with communities who we want to make sure are represented is also very valuable, but we can't put the onus on those communities. It's up to us as the data producers, developers, whoever we might be, who want to make these tools more representative to actually be engaging those people. But happy to hear from other panelists as well on this.
If any of the other panelists would like to jump in with a response for this question, I did see one hand, which I've now lost. I think. Sorry, Mr. Bhardwaj, over to you.
Okay. Thank you. I'm completely in agreement with Masdi said. Just a few points, 2 quick points on that. One is this brings us to the idea of the national data infrastructure. So any data which is produced in any country needs to be streamlined so that it can be fed to AI. To remove the biases we are talking about. So what's happening right now that we may be data rich, we are not data wise. And so is AI. So AI is as good as the data is. So we need to work on. So I was there in a similar webinar yesterday, and there everyone talked about the national data infrastructure. So I get that's the key to the successful AI implementation. That's one. And second is the democratization of the AI resources. So while right now we all agree that there is a skewed distribution of AI, so the data and the culture and data and the inputs are in the global south, whereas the infrastructure and the capacity is in global north. Somehow they need to come together to ensure that the sustainable goal of nobody is left, everybody is taken into account is met. That's what my point is. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have other questions, but I'm just going to leave it for a couple of seconds in case any of our other panelists want to jump in.
Sophie, if I can jump in.
Please.
So this is really a wide scoping question because there are 2 sides to it. One is to improve data disaggregation, and the other is the representation, which technically can be looked at from different perspectives. So I go back to emphasize what I talked about earlier on with a typical example of what Ghana did a couple of years back. A number of NSOs are able to produce national level reports, and because of the burdensome processes of disaggregating it at the subnational level, it takes sometimes a very long period to get it out. But through AI, we can now quickly, through large language models, within a couple of days, produce reports at the subnational level, which will represent geographical areas that are marginalized. The other way we could think about this is, how do we use AI tools to address the needs of very marginalized groups? Again, what we did with AI was to think about how people with disabilities can have a voice in whatever issue that we're thinking about. So you don't have to specifically think about statistical sampling representativity based on the questions that has been asked, but think about a way, as the questioner put it, to make them more visible. And their visibility is not only about a representation in the sample. Their visibility can come from the perspective that you've used an AI to tailor-made to a marginalized group to get their responses using any of the new data sources that has come up. Thank you, and over.
Fantastic. Thank you. Then the questions are flooding in, so I'm going to move on to the next question. Perhaps we can start with one of...
Sophie,
sorry.
can I just say something? Sorry,
Always,
you may
Johannes.
not see my hand. No, because it's so exciting. We are diving really into a discussion. No, it's a real train of thought here about this question about marginalized groups and, as Sam has nicely put it, opportunity and challenges at the same time. And I think Sam brought something very important for this debate, which we haven't been able to address in this paper. And I think I wanted just to sort of double down on what Mercedes has said. This is a beginning paper. It's not the end. It's just one little paper. There needs to be 10 and 15 and 20 more papers to be written, hopefully, and hope the colleagues who are listening get ideas from what we are saying. Now, what I wanted to comment on is specifically the localization of that question. Marginalized groups are often in rural areas. There's no connectivity issues here, which we really didn't discuss so far, connectivity. But leave that aside for a second. I think that's something, a new work stream also by Stefan Verhulst and a few others is about citizen-generated data and bringing in citizens into the data production and use process. I think official statistics, in order to be able to remain relevant, they have to be closer to the people. They have to be closer to the people. And for that, AI can be a useful tool. There are lots of questions how it can be done, but the local public service AI data citizen train, that is something I think that should be led to 10 different PhD and master theses, hopefully, to be written. So I just wanted to flag here. Probably it's more confusing for some of you and than answering that question, but I think it's spot on. The localization and having public goods and focusing on marginalized people. Thank you.
Thank you, Johannes. I think the next question actually follows on quite nicely from your intervention. So perhaps, again, this is open to everybody, but Therese and Dr. Wajdi, since you haven't answered yet, feel free to jump in first. Since many national statistical offices in lower middle income countries are still grappling with basic data and system challenges, how is AI being accepted by staff? And how do NSOs balance addressing these challenges with adopting AI?
Yeah. In our experience in BPS Statistics Indonesia, we have a lot of surveys. For 1 year, we conduct more than 1,400 surveys activities. And of course, in some part of this task, this survey, AI help us make our work faster, which means that when we do our work faster, we have a more leisure time. So that's how our staff see that AI can help us doing our work faster, our work better, with a more, of course, increased quality as well. But on the other hand, also increasing the quality of our life. So we see AI as a tools help us not only increasing the quality of the data, but also increasing the quality of our life. Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you. You've made me very eager to integrate AI into my work now. So that's a very good advertisement. Therese, would you like to add a couple of words on this question?
Yes, thank you, Sophie. Actually, it's the question was like, how are we addressing the challenges vis-a-vis adopting AI? I think it's we cannot separate the two. We are on the same journey. I think it's not even on lower and middle income countries alone. It's like a general journey. We are onwards too. And what we do here, we mainly ensure we have regular awareness campaigns to tell staff what is AI, how can AI, how can we safely use it, and as Professor Sam mentioned it, there are those low-hanging fruits. Mainly we are focusing on data uptake and data dissemination. Those are the main use cases we are piloting, and so far so good. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing, Therese. Again, the questions are open to everyone, but Rohit and Sam, would you like to come in on this?
Maybe a quick word. I guess we need to show quick results So if we keep showing the results, maybe the low-hanging fruit, it just extends from that fact. So if we are able to, so we in MOSPI were a small group doing innovation. So there were not many takers for the new technology because we as statisticians are trained to explain, whereas AI, at times is not able to explain many phenomena. So there has not been many takers for it. But when we could show the business, the other verticals, I mean to say, that how easy it becomes for them to do certain work. And that we did by showing the quick results of pilots. So quick results of pilots to me is very important to bring everybody on board.
Fantastic. And Sam, would you like to add a couple of words on this sort of
just something minor, Sophie. I think the word AI naturally scares people. So my advice is that the entry point should not be a whole staff seminar on what AI is going to do. Let us try and be innovative in using other words and other experiences that sort of resemble or points to what AI helps us with. So in the case of Ghana, what I did by saying is AI is about automation. And anytime I meet my staff on the corridor, I ask them, are you coming to do what you did exactly yesterday? Then I tell you that that is what AI is out there to do. Then the next thing I say to staff is that AI cannot tell us about originality. Originality rests with us, and that is our unique presence in life. So you try to enter the world of conversation on AI in a way that you are sure people would better associate with what it is, and then gradually you have a roadmap that builds on the technicalities of it. Thank you, and over.
Thank you. Fantastic response again, Sam. So I have an interesting question here. Again, I believe to everybody. And the question is on how to scale up pilots, not to undermine the sovereignty of national statistical offices, ensuring that AI strengthens the National Statistical Office rather than offers the same one solution for all countries. So I think several of you mentioned that idea of localization, Johannes, I think as well yourself. So I'm keen for any of you to pick up on this point on sovereignty too.
Let me jump in then. I thought,
Thank you.
I'll handle the sovereignty matter later on. Let me just talk about the pilot to production, which is my favorite topic, if you ask me. The problem here is that we don't define pilot. So somebody will call it POC, somebody will call it pilot. And it is very important for us to convince the leadership that if they are financing a pilot, where will it end? And where will the scaling start? So it's very important to draw that line for everyone, especially for the leadership. When I am asking for the fund from them, I am convincing for a project. That's not happening. We just start doing a work. It is my experience, not necessarily is universal, but it's my experience that generally it happens in NSOs that, we just say we are doing a pilot, but we don't take it, we don't define it. Once we define it, people will understand that what type of requirement was there for the pilot, which would be very, very different from what is the requirement for a production. I will not repeat myself in terms of infrastructure, in terms of data. It would be very, very, in terms of hits, in terms of usage. My pilot would be accessed by, say, 100 people or 200 or 500. My chatbot is accessed by 7,000 people in one go. So the scaling is something which, we need to work on these subtle differences. And so that would be one point. So far as sovereignty goes, I am a strict believer that there is no one solution fits all. We have to contextualize it. We have to ensure that the local sensitivity is taken into account while designing a AI solution, and then only we can move forward on it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Do we have any, perhaps, Therese, I see you've unmuted yourself.
Yes, if I may come in here, maybe I'm touching on a different perspective, at least what we call pilot in our context. We just start small and then gather feedback and learn from the process and then prepare for scaling. So at this point in time, at least for the chatbot, we are just exploring a reader scale only on Gender Data Lab. So considering on how it goes and gathering feedback from different users, now we see how we can again scale it up for all statistical data. But at the moment, we just concentrate on this small scale, learn from the process, and then improve so that we prepare for the scaling up. Over.
Fantastic. I wonder, Professor Anim, whether you maybe have something on this sort of sovereignty angle from a regional perspective as well.
So again, I'm smiling to this because, Sophie, I started with a conversation around ownership of what we do as a national statistical system. So the distinction between pilot and scaling up would always have to go back to the question, who is owning the pilot? And I can say with certainty that once the pilot is driven by an international agency, the likelihood of scaling up is very minimal. That is why at ECA, our four-pronged pillar is to ensure country ownership, to ensure that there is coordinated partnership, and more importantly, a demonstrated value from the pilot. Once you stick with these enablers, the movement from piloting to scalability would always be seamless. So the critical question is who owns the pilot? And my advice is that the National Statistical Office should own the pilot. The country should own it to ensure that seamless transition. Thank you, and over.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. So I'm just going to take one pick. So maybe let's end on something visionary. And I think we can maybe have sort of 1 minute from each of the speakers. What new project or tool would you like to pilot next using AI within the NSO? So maybe we start, in fact, backwards. So we'll start with our last speaker on the panel, Professor Anim, and then we'll work our way back to Therese.
Thank you very much, Sophie. So sorry, I'm going to be repetitive. The new project, as I indicated, is really harnessing the ideas on what ought to be done. And I clear in my mind that there is a lot of work in the area on the generic studies business process mapping. What is really missing, especially on the African continent, is our challenge in getting ownership of the ideas that feeds into policy and eventually how to evaluate those policies. So let's tackle the two ends of the value chain and then see how we can get the impact being realized. Thank you, and over.
Thank you, Sam. Well noted, and we'll hope that we then meet in the middle to complete the value chain. So same question to Dr. Wajdi. What new project or tool would you next like to pilot using AI within the NSO?
Yes, in our side now we are trying to develop in the build process. So we already have some in the dissemination phase in the GSBPM, and for the analysis and evaluation we already have some, but now we try to develop in the build process, which is when we have a standard metadata, data in metadata system. We think that AI could help us to build a standard instrument, make faster instruments with some very simple prompt, like you have a needs, you have identify your needs for certain indicators, and you already have that kind of instrument. So that's what we try to build next. Thank you, Sophie.
Fantastic. We'll be watching the space then in Indonesia. Okay, same question, Mr. Bhardwaj.
So I have a question for you. So you are using a LLM and you want to access data. Would you like to go to my interface and take the data, or you would like to stick to your LLM and want to access the data? What would be your preference?
I would probably
Okay,
stick to what I
maybe
know.
what would you do? You would probably slip to my website. That's what you're saying,
Or
or you would like to stick to your website?
stick to my website and what I know best.
Yes. So that's my dream project. The project is MCP. So I want to create a MOSPy MCP, which will allow, and not in 5 year time or just in a 6 months time or so. So I'm still sticking to dissemination. I want to create a MOSPy MCP, which will allow the user to remain in their environment and to use the model for which they have paid for and access my data. So we are working on it. Hopefully we should be able to show you sometime. Thank you.
I look forward to it, and in the not too distant future. So maybe our final panelist. So Therese, over to you. Same question. What would you next like to develop?
Since I'm the last panelist, I'm not sure I'm going to respond to the question. Actually, in the office, we don't have a plan to start a new project because we have already piloted and explored some projects. So the next phase is how are we going to sustain and scale? So there's no, unless otherwise provided, but we are just focusing on the projects we have at hand. To mention the computer vision project and the dissemination part using chatbots. No new projects are planned for now.
Well, as we heard through the discussion paper and through the panel, that sustainability and scaling is perhaps more difficult than coming up with new ideas. So, yeah, don't underplay it. That's a big road ahead, and good luck. So, I think I'm left only to thank all of our panelists before I hand over to Johannes for closing remarks. That's been really fantastic and insightful. I think it's given a new view even on the discussion paper that Mercedes presented. So I'm keen to reread over it and see maybe how my interpretation might change or what new ideas come to mind, having seen what all the great projects you are implementing. So Johannes, I pass over to you for the final word.
Well, thank you so much, Sophie. Let me just join you in thanking everybody here, the panelists and also the participants, to be part of this really interesting and fascinating conversation. I also have to say I learned also a lot, and that was the idea of this webinar. It was to share knowledge, but also to learn and ask questions. And hopefully some of you will use this opportunity and have open questions and will start to read and look. It's a very important topic. Now, let me close with three reflections very quickly. The first one is a little anecdote. It's the anecdote that I was with my colleague Philip 2 weeks ago in Nairobi, in Kenya, well known for its very advanced AI digitalization. And we, as Paris 21, have run there a leadership training for heads and senior management of statistical offices from Africa. 27 country representatives have been there, and one person from the Caribbean. So that was a leadership training, how to manage teams, how to influence stakeholders. And we had one little session on AI. And when I asked these 28 people in the room from 27 African countries and one Caribbean, how many of you are already using AI in any way in daily work? How many? So I can't do a poll here. I was really surprised, and it was on the lower end. It was less than 5 countries. It was less than 5 countries. What I then realized is maybe it wasn't entirely clear for them what I meant with AI, because of course we often have AI, the classical form, machine reading, and many of the things that are defined in the paper. I think they were more thinking about generative AI, the things that Sam and Therese and many others of you were alluding to, generative AI to go for dissemination and use. And here surprisingly, not many countries, for those representatives who are there, are using it now, which tells me we are really, really, really at the beginning of the journey. And what they were telling me as a main stumbling block is, I would say, it's very much linked to leadership issues and change management. And I think that also comes very nicely out of the policy paper. Often we equate AI with digitalization, technology, access to chips and gigabytes and those things. In reality, it's often changing people's mindset, starting from the heads of statistical or even of ministries to changing behavior of your own staff, which is not easy because they will feel threatened. They will feel threatened. So what I want to point out to is you have to think this holistically. That's my first point. Second point is Global South, partner countries. We are an organization working with low and lower middle income countries. We are also a bit worried that this could lead to a more deepening of a digital divide between those who have access, connectivity, and those who have not. But we are also optimistic that through the case studies that we've seen, in particular also what many of you have said in terms of the use cases, that maybe there is a leapfrogging possible, like with the mobile phones some 30 years ago. The mobile phones revolutionized development mostly in poor countries in some way. And maybe AI in some way hopefully can also help poor countries to catch up very significantly on some of those key issues. So the last point I wanted to make, and I think this links up to the low-hanging fruits and what we do, we are quite happy at Paris 21 to stand on two legs. The first leg is writing policy papers, doing literature reviews, doing these kind of things. But I shouldn't forget to say we also do very practical work. Actually, most of the time we do practical work. And some of you may know we have a task team on artificial intelligence that is shared by Professor Sam and one of my colleagues, François Fontenot. And they do really down-to-earth work in this task team to document cases and whatnot. So this is a really very clearly articulated practical work. And then we have a very practical project financed by Google, the AIR project, Artificial Readiness Project, Artificial Intelligence Readiness Project. How can you use AI to make data available with 5 countries where we currently are implementing the first work and try to learn from this. So Paris 21 stands on these both foot. And we are very happy to have you continuing with us this journey. With this reflection, I see Karolin. I think we can close the meeting if okay with you. I think we had a very, very good conversation. Thanks for your wonderful questions and stay in touch. This is the first of 3 webinars. So if you don't know what you have to do tomorrow, and I believe also after tomorrow there's another one on data use, and after tomorrow is on capacity development. So feel free to join us again, and maybe colleagues can put the link. We will continue the conversation. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon, and see you soon. Bye-bye.